Book. Yes, I think we're live. Yes, sorry if you've already been looking at my face going like this for a few minutes, but hello, hello. I think we're live. Let's see if everything works. Yeah, should be fine. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of our Side by Side Chats, where we talk to our great experts mainly about themselves and about important topics that they are passionate about. Today we have a familiar face here today with us, David Ruiz. David Ruiz. Sorry, I just call you David. It was a very Dutch
That's
thing of
cool.
me.
That's not bad. Yeah, I mean in Spanish it's David, so it's like yeah, no, it's nice.
Welcome again. Thank you so much for being here again.
Thank you so much for having me again. Always love doing these. Always love coming back. I feel like I was just here, but that's probably like we did this right before the holidays, and it's been a black hole ever since then. You know, time gets sapped into something else. So thank you so much for having me again.
And thank you very much for coming. I'm sorry, I have a bit of a cough, so if I
Don't worry, I'll cough in solidarity. I will cough in solidarity.
I'm so
There we
sorry,
go.
suddenly it came up.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I hope you feel better. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
David, can you talk about a little bit about why we are here today while I cough everything out?
100%. Yeah, 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 I can. So, folks who are joining today, today we're talking about a topic known as stalkerware. It is a mobile threat. It's a term that gets used frequently to talk about apps, and they are apps, right? They're mobile apps, predominantly on Android, that can be used to non-consensually spy on someone. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. Well, that is what we're talking about today. It's something we've worked on a lot at Malwarebytes in terms of detecting and protecting people against it, in terms of notifying people when it's on their devices. I've been here for, if you can believe it, last week was my 7th year anniversary at Malwarebytes. So I've been here for 7 years. And I think since day one, we were working on this stuff. We were detecting it. We were finding it. We had a
Hmm.
fellow here a long, long time ago named Nathan, who was one of our Android engineers. And yeah, intensely committed. He was in there. He was finding these things, detecting them, writing stuff about them, warning people about them. And so yeah, this we have a long tradition of protecting people against this threat.
And why is this a topic that's so close to your heart, David?
What a good question. Oh, it's fun. Sometimes, like, Tjitske, you do this so well. You ask a question that's so at the heart of a matter that, like, I was like, oh, I never even thought about that. Like, why do you do the things that you do? So,
Hmm.
one of the reasons is when I joined Malwarebytes, I joined from a digital rights nonprofit where I was working
Hmm.
on surveillance issues. Right, I was working to stop the main thing I was trying to do is convince US legislators to rein in the spying that is done by the NSA, the National
Yeah.
Security Agency. The spying that agency does capture a ton of our communications, a ton of our
Hmm.
data. And there are ways for government agencies like the FBI and the NSA itself to access that information without a warrant, right?
Hmm.
That's wrong. I think that's wrong, very plainly. I think that's very, very
Absolutely.
wrong. That work, right, in when you start becoming interested in surveillance, government surveillance, look, I'm also interested in personal surveillance. I'm very,
Hmm.
very deeply interested in the ways that we as a society have invited surveillance into our romantic relationships as what I believe is a substitute of trust, right? And so what I'm talking about
Yeah.
there is I think that this is me, right? I hate location tracking. I
Yeah.
absolutely loathe location tracking. I do not engage in location tracking with my wife. My wife does not location track me. We both have talked about it. We have discussed it. We are uncomfortable with it. We are not okay with it.
Same.
Um, Obviously, right, there are many people for whom they navigate their relationship in their own way. They have their own like rules and their own boundaries. I understand that, but for my relationship, this is a violation of privacy and it is a violation of trust. And so what I
Yeah.
mean there when I talk about substituting trust with certainty, I see location tracking as that issue. I see
Hmm.
that if I don't trust where my wife is, then having the certainty provided by location tracking is not healthy. I don't like
No.
that. I don't want those things to be interchangeable. They're not interchangeable. I trust that my wife is where she says she is. I trust that my wife is a responsible and loving individual. And that's it. Like, and if I get anxieties because she is, late back from the gym or from work or from, seeing her mom, those are anxieties that I have to deal with it, right?
Yeah,
That's me. That's
absolutely.
that's an emotional response that I have to learn to be comfortable with. And it is not an emotional response where I can assuage it with technology that invades your privacy. So I am very, very interested in the rules that we give to one another to govern how we love. And I think that this thing here, what we're going to talk about, stalkerware, is
Hmm.
something that breaks a lot of rules, is something that violates trust, violates privacy. It warps intimacy into something else. And so,
Hmm.
right, I think this is a hijacking of intimacy. I think it's a hijacking of love and trust. And yeah, I've been working on this long enough to just like very plainly say, right? Sometimes we're so diplomatic about what we say. I hate this stuff. I cannot stand
Yeah,
this stuff. This stuff
yeah.
is vile. So that's kind of where it comes from.
And it's dangerous. And like we've been talking, you were talking about relationships and trust. We've been talking about, and you've been talking about it in your podcast about how, sorry, I'm very old. The young people use a sharing location with a friend as like a level in their relationship or a
Yeah,
certain high level
yeah,
in their friendship. And I find that very, very disturbing. What you were saying is stalkerware is indeed it's and for to me what is really maddening, and like we're in marketing, right? Like we do a million
yeah,
things in Malwarebytes, but we're
yeah.
a marketing team,
It's true.
is that these apps are just being marketed as something helpful, something super oh,
Yeah,
do you want to know where your kids are? They can
yeah,
cycle home. You can track them on your phone or on your
yeah,
watch or anything. And to me, I think that is where this is just goes totally against what I believe in, is that you're marketing it as something that is helpful and innocent, and it actually isn't. What are your thoughts on that? Even though I probably know what your thoughts
yeah,
on that
yeah,
are.
yeah. So that's a great point, right? We often talk about the technical capabilities of these apps. And to be very clear here, right? They can pry into text messages. They can record phone calls and play those phone calls back. They can retrieve photos from your phone. They can retrieve
Mhm.
photos that are deleted from your phone. They grab them before deletion occurs. They can turn on and off your Wi-Fi, which when we think about like what the internet provides access to, that's a form of abuse, right? That is
Yeah,
isolating someone. They can record your screen so they can see what's happening on the screen. They can look at your location history. They can look at your live location. So all of these things can be done. An app is downloaded onto a phone, and then someone who does not own that phone is able to view all of that stuff away when they sign
mhm,
into a web portal just online. And so they get this access, this unfettered, non-consensual access very frequently
yeah.
into a device that now contains our lives. When we hear about that stuff, right, I think most people will be like, wow, that's really dangerous. Why would I need that
Alarm
much power?
bells.
Why would anyone need that much power? That's kind of bizarre. And what's interesting is some of these developers who make them, the websites that advertise them, as you said, they're advertised as helpful tools. They're advertised as things that help, like you said, parenting. You should know what your kids are saying online. You should know where they are at all times. And I think absolutely there are things that suck online that you should prevent your kids from engaging in. I just want to be extraordinarily
Hmm.
clear there, right? I'm not saying, hey, let's just have your kid go open season on the internet. The internet sucks. And so, yes, a good parent does know what their kid is doing online. A good parent
Yeah,
knows what
yeah.
their kids' fears are about what they're encountering online, what their
Hmm.
fears are about who they're speaking to online, right? There's so many avenues for a child to speak to a stranger online through video games, through any of the many services that like we have made them cool. We
Yeah.
are the people who are making Instagram and TikTok exciting for kids, you know? We are the people who think that these are things valid of creating a login for a child. I think it's bizarre. Like we just have to, like they're emulating us, you know? Like
Yeah,
when we
absolutely.
use the phone, they want to use the phone as well. We're just creating that kind of relationship. So anyways, the idea that you need that much access as helpful, every parent I've spoken to on the podcast, every person I've spoken to, every child behavioral like psychologist has said, if you are concerned about what your kids are doing online, you should do individual conversations, individual controls,
Hmm.
individual restrictions. Um, just because you're worried about where your kid is at night, which 100%, I totally understand, because you're interested about where they're located with their friends at night.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you get to read their text messages. If you're interested about what they're saying in their DMs, that doesn't mean you get to look at like their screen captures. If you're worried about who they're talking to, that doesn't mean you get access to so many different data points. And again, these are, as you said, they're marketed as helpful tools.
Yeah.
They're they're not they're not they're helpful to people who make money off of them, but they are
Yeah.
they are bizarrely marketed in a sense of like this responsibility sheen, responsibility washing. We talk about whitewashing something's reputation. That's what this is. And yeah, it sucks. That's it. It's just it's
Yeah. And I think this chat is very important. Well, of course, this chat is important, but because in a lot of cases it's being marketed as well, like how you do you want to know where your kids are, and that's it. And a lot
yeah,
of people, maybe a lot of people perceive stalkerware as it being that,
mhm,
but it's so much more. And one of the statistics that I read about, for instance, that like yeah, I was probably very innocent about stalkerware in the past as well. Is that in 2020, at the height of the COVID lockdown, stalkerware was through the roof. And at first, you're like, oh, how could that be? I mean, we couldn't go anywhere. But in times of uncertainty, financial distress, isolation,
yeah,
uh, that kind of trust, especially if there's no trust already, that goes
yeah,
down the drain. And I think it ties into a lot of other digital abuse that occurred during that time.
yeah,
Um, so I think having this chat about what it is very important, that it's not just for location tracking. Um,
yeah, yeah,
how now it's not set in stone, of course, but if you think you have stalkerware on your phone or on your device, like what would be certain red flags, like certain symptoms of stalkerware being installed? Because in most, like you can't see it, you don't
yeah,
know because it's been installed without your consent, right? So you don't know
yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's an excellent question, right? And you got to this idea here as well that I forgot that a lot of times these apps are installed and they are disguised. Sometimes they are invisible on the actual phone, right? Like on the device when you're opening like your app drawer, it's not there. And sometimes it is disguised as another app. It's a settings app or a calculator app
Yeah.
or something like that. When the difficult thing about stalkerware and stalkerware type apps, and that's what we call them stalkerware type
Hmm.
apps, apps that can monitor someone, they can spy on someone, they fit in this kind of umbrella, right? The really, really difficult thing is that I think the symptoms that most people find are so overlapping and so similar with symptoms of other types of tech-enabled abuse and also just other types of stalking, right? Like that's
Yeah.
what we're talking about here. So what we hear about a lot and what domestic abuse advocates hear about a lot is pretty much someone knows something they're not supposed to, right? My ex
Hmm.
knows that I was somewhere and I didn't tell him that. They know that I'm having conversations with my mom and I didn't tell them that. They know that I visited my sister this weekend and I didn't tell them that. And so all of this can feel like someone knows something they're not supposed to, and they're weaponizing that information. The problem is that there are so many ways to get that information that do not require stalkerware,
Yeah.
right? And so, again, we've heard these stories before that someone might know where someone is. An ex might know where a partner is because they did plant an Apple AirTag, on their car.
Hmm.
That is not stalkerware, but that is a way to location track someone. We've also heard stories before that someone knew who someone was talking to because they were tagged in an Instagram post, right? They were
Yeah.
tagged in a reel, and that reel, they were at a bar and they were having fun with someone. Um, Things like that can reveal so much information. Also, sometimes, right? They go to those people. An abusive partner will sometimes directly talk to the sister, to the mom, to the dad, and find
Hmm.
out, someone was speaking. Um, all of those things present the same symptoms. All of those things present, I'm in danger because someone knows something that they're not supposed to
Yeah.
know. The the actual way to tell, right, if you have stalkerware, like one of these types of apps on your device, is to run a scan, right?
Hmm.
That's something that is required for knowing if there is stalkerware on your device. The problem, of course, is that if you run a scan and you remove that app, that also removes the abuser's access, which could anger them, right? And so that's why we
Yeah.
always say the first step into thinking you have stalkerware on your phone is not to run a scan, right? Malwarebytes has a free tool that definitely detects this stuff and removes it. Every single like cybersecurity firm in the Coalition Against Stalkerware, which we're a founding partner of, every single firm, tech company in that coalition also has a free scanner. And they detect and they help you remove stalkerware. But your first decision cannot be, hey, I'm going to find
Yeah.
this and remove this because you know your threat model the most. You know your safety planning the most. Our first, honestly, what we tell a lot of folks is to reach out first. Reach out to the National Network to End Domestic Violence first. Reach out to a
Hmm.
shelter. Um, there are folks who absolutely know the right steps to take, and they know the questions to ask in terms of, are you safe right now? Can you do this can you talk to us from a safe device that isn't monitored?
Yeah.
Can you use someone else's device? If you leave, where are you going? All of these things. They're absolute professional on this. So again, to determine whether or not you have stalkerware on your device, to have an actual answer to that, you do need to have a scan. But a scan is not
Yeah.
the first thing that we ever recommend because we know there are so many external circumstances that can make life much more difficult for a survivor. And so, yeah, it's unfortunately there are so many, like I said, different symptoms that overlap. And the best thing I think you can always do is talk to a professional, talk to someone.
Yeah.
Again, I always push out the National Network to End Domestic Violence. They're a huge partner in our work. Um, they're
Hmm.
fantastic. They're smarter than I am, and they do really good stuff. There's never been a question that I can't get answered from them. They're very thoughtful folks.
Yeah. I just find it very interesting when you're talking about this because it's so counter-reactive, right? Because
Hmm.
we do always say, oh, when you think something, when you suspect something's on your phone, run a scan and
Yeah,
we'll do it. But
yeah,
indeed, it's not the case with stalkerware, unfortunately. It's not as
yeah.
set in stone as other malware, other usual malware that you can see malware on your phone.
I did want to
Um,
also say briefly here, we've been talking about these apps and how to scan for them and remove them, but I have to be very clear here. The predominant platform that this affects is Android, right? These are
yeah,
mobile apps for the most part. The predominant platform it affects is Android. People always ask why that is. There's actually a couple of answers. They're pretty simple. Android is the number one operating system in the world. I know that's weird. I know that's a bizarre statistic, right? But it is the most popular.
yeah,
There are more devices running Android than there are devices running Windows, and certainly than there are devices running iOS and all those other ones. Android. Android is the biggest platform. That's it. And so
yeah,
developers, people who make stalkerware, they're just making software for the biggest share of the global device like usage. That's it. Also, number two is that stalkerware developers are lazy. They're deeply lazy
Yeah.
people, and we know this because we've had a lot of folks on the podcast who actually they download these, they pull them apart, they see what's
Mm.
inside. We've had someone on the podcast, a person named Maya Arson Cremieux, fun name, who hacked a Stalkerware developer and actually saw the user like list and found out that there were police department, like they were not police departments, they were police officers using it. They were government agents using it. We don't know why they were using it, but they used their government email address to sign up as a user. But what she found is that um, the code that is being used to run these apps, it's copy pasted, 10,
Yeah.
12 times over. A developer sometimes will have 12 versions of their app on different marketplaces, sometimes marketed differently. Sometimes this one is a parenting app. This one is a work surveillance app. This is a spousal spying app, right? Sometimes they're really brazen. They're like, this is to spy on your partner.
Yeah.
Is your partner cheating? Find out with this app. So they're just
Hmm.
creating copy paste versions of their own apps. They're taking copy paste versions of other people's apps and they're marketing them. They're spinning up a website in a day, and they're saying, look, here are all these different ways to catch fish in the same net. They're lazy. They're lazy. And so if something already exists on Android, they're going to copy paste that.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Um, what I was going like intimate partner violence is something that, in a lot of cases, especially when it comes to digital abuse, is very difficult to prove in a lot of cases.
Mhm, mhm.
There's
Yeah.
not a lot of legislation around it, because it keeps on evolving. What are currently any like laws or legislation that you're aware of in, let's start in the US, and is there anything that you think should be implemented to basically tackle this as part of soccer abuse?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Great question. The fact is that for a while, for a very long time, the ownership of stalkerware, of one of these types of apps, did not violate any laws. However,
Yeah.
the use of them violates a ton of laws, right? There's a ton of
Hmm.
laws where listening to a phone call without like someone's consent, that's against the law. That's just against the law. There's no like gray area here or there. The Federal Wiretap
Hmm.
Act, it's like, nope, that's illegal. There were tons of state-based location laws where tracking someone's location without their consent violates the law. Like it's very clear. And so using a stalkerware type app to non-consensually spy on someone's location, there you go. You violated the law.
Hmm.
About 6 years ago, we started seeing individual states pass stalkerware laws. Just saying, hey, if you download and put this app on someone else's phone on a device you do not own, that violates the law. There you go. We were happy to see those laws. That's great. I'm happy to see, okay, like it's not just the use of them, it's the installation on them that violates the law. At the same time, right? There's like a very, very, very broad federal law, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, where using a computer in a way that is not approved by its owner violates the law. And so you could say even before stalkerware specific laws, like that covered the installation of stalkerware type apps. The important thing here is though, there are a bunch of laws. There's a ton of laws that you can ping pong around and you can say,
Yeah.
okay, someone violated this, someone violated that, someone violated that. What's more important, we learned, is for people who are actually, survivors of domestic abuse, um, they don't care about the law like that gets used to stop abuse. Like you could use laws A through Z. It doesn't really matter. What matters is stopping the abuse. And so what's actually most powerful for a lot of like domestic abuse survivors is that they are trusted when they go to police, that their claims are investigated, and that they can get what's very, very frequently just a temporary restraining order on a person. They are looking for a way to stop the abuse. That's what they're looking for. If you're using some arcane law, that's fine. If you're using a new law, that's fine. But what they want is to stop the abuse from happening. That's actually what we care about too. We care about safety. And so I'm happy that this is getting recognition. I'm happy that this is getting attention. Um, what would really, really, really help, and we have heard this many times from domestic abuse advocates, what would really help is if when a survivor goes and reaches out for help, that they are taken seriously. Like that's actually the hurdle that a lot of folks are facing. Um,
Yeah.
the flip side also, the government about, 5 or 6 years ago is pretty good about catching these
Hmm.
developers, stopping them from making apps or owning any business. They do that. They're good about that.
Yeah.
There are individual actions across states where, again, a stalker developer is discovered, a legal action is taken against them. They are removed of their ownership of any company. The company is shut down. That has happened, a handful of times, and those are good things to see
Hmm.
as well because it's not just about stopping. It's not just about helping survivors. It's about stopping the people who make these tools. So both things are happening. Both are important.
Thank you so much for that, David. I am very sorry to everyone who is watching. I've been trying to get apparently people can't hear you, David.
Oh
I've been
no.
trying to
Okay.
juggle this
Yeah, yeah,
back and
yeah.
forth.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I will upload this. I have a recording ready. I will upload the rest of this later. I am very sorry to everyone who's watching because I can, of course, obviously I
I
can
can
hear
hear you.
David,
Yeah.
but for some reason the program that we use to transmit it is not transmitting the audio. But I
Hmm.
promise you, I will upload everything with audio later.
Hmm.
Um, I will finish it here then, David.
Yes.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much
Thank you.
for coming and for your story. And I promise everyone who was on, it was a very interesting conversation. And I will upload all the information later. I want to thank everyone for being here. I'm really sorry if you could only hear my voice. Um, I will, I promise you, I will get this sorted. And at least today or tomorrow, you'll be able to hear David's lovely voice and David's lovely story as well.
Thank you so much.
So sorry, everyone, for it not coming through. Thank you so much, David, for being with me. It was a really interesting conversation, and I, again, I can't say apology. I can't apologize enough, but
Full
we'll
moon.
get there.
Full moon. It's
Sorry
not
for
a full moon, but
every.
waning, something like that. Yeah, the tides, the ocean tides. It's okay. Thank you so
Exactly.
much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day. Thank you.